Hey guys, so I was talking with Sue and Dom, and I often send them pictures of things that I've made or some recipes. We try to keep each other accountable with our exercising, and we've recently started doing it with our eating as well. So I figured, why not share my recipe for keto pumpkin cheesecake? I know it's not the healthy food, though if we are craving some dessert, figure why not make it lower sugar, natural sugars, and to avoid that spike in blood sugar. Sorry, I'm melting the butter, trying to get a little ahead here. Okay, so we start by making the crust. This is 1 3/4 cup almond flour. Okay, from here we're going to add 3 tablespoons of Swerve sweetener. Now, Swerve is an all-natural sweetener. It's even pet-friendly for those of you that do have pets. I can't speak too much about it because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm an expert. I just read the back of the packaging. So what I did here is I actually did a mixture of the brown sugar and the regular sugar. The granular sugar and the brown sugar Swerve. And the reason I did that is I have made this recipe once before, and I wasn't too much of a fan of the texture and a little bit of lack of sweetness in the crust. So I want to try it this time with a little bit of brown sugar mix. Okay, so I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of this mixture. 1, 2, and a little bit more of the brown sugar in this time, and 3. Also, what we'll need to add to here as well is a little bit of cinnamon, so half a teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay, we're going to need the cinnamon again for the filling part. So once you have all of these dry ingredients together, you could whisk it. Make sure everything is nice and mixed. Especially the brown sugar. You know, the brown sugar portion of it comes out a little clumpy, just like regular brown sugar does. The Swerve, fun fact though, the Swerve does measure out the same as sugar. So if you were using regular sugar, if you weren't making this a keto pumpkin cheesecake, the measurements are the same. Okay, so we're about done mixing the dry ingredients. And what I did is I melted a stick of butter, which I am going to add to this. Ooh, this little piece of brown sugar that didn't break up. Let's break up this bad boy. Of course, wash your hands. I feel like in baking and cooking, we tend to use our hands. So always good to give them a good wash beforehand. Okay, add in our melted butter. Okay, for this part, I actually prefer to use a fork over a whisk. I don't even have a real reason as to why. I just find it easier personally. So we are going to have to use our hands again in just a short minute after mixing this all together. So that's it. 3 simple ingredients, or I should say 4 ingredients to make our keto crust for our keto pumpkin cheesecake. Now, of course, if you just wanted to make a regular cheesecake, as we move forward, you can still do the same crust, and you can just omit the pumpkin and the pumpkin pie spice that I'll be using. Okay. Alrighty, so now that this is mixed, just about, I see a little bit of the almond flour hiding at the bottom here. Okay, smells so much better with the brown sugar added in there. Okie doke. So you will take a 9-inch round pie tin, I guess. I'm just a home cook. I am in no way a professional. Though I have to say that people do really enjoy my baking and my cooking. So I figured why not share some of this. I know we're all kind of stuck at home. So we're doing a little bit more baking and cooking than perhaps we have in the past. So now's the time to try some new things, right? Personally, this is one of my all-time favorite pastimes. So I am a frequent baker. My daughter loves to bake with me. Just for the purpose of these videos to not last that long, she's playing in the basement with my husband, son, and dog. Okay, so you really have to pat this down. This does take a little bit of time. And if you're like me and you like things very even, it does take just a little bit more time to really pat it down. You do have to use your fingers. Make sure it's nice, evenly spread. You can pat down. I like patting down the corners because for some reason when I take the round part off, I like to see that it's a nice smooth line underneath the cheesecake. So we are just about done with our crust layer. Okay, I'll show you guys that in a second. Okay, for the purposes of this video, it doesn't have to be perfect, and I will post pictures of the final product. Also to note is that I've had my oven heating to 350 degrees. It is already at that temperature. Okay. Now, we can put this aside and we're going to work on our filling. So we will need 16 ounces of cream cheese. Bear with me as I rinse my hands. You need 16 ounces of cream cheese. It has to be at room temperature, so I can tell you that mine has been left out on my counter for a good hour. So this is one of those things that you do kind of have to prepare for. Sorry, I clean as I go. Alrighty, so take the 16 ounces of room temperature cream cheese. You can use a mixer. I have a stand mixer here. You can use a stand mixer, a hand mixer. You can use a blender if you don't have either. A little bit that's stuck. No cream cheese left behind. Okay. Forgot that I child locked my garbage, so can't get in there for right now. Okay, so now we're going to do, we put in our 16 ounces of cream cheese already. I've already pre-measured out 2/3 cup of the granulated swerve sweetener. So you can add that in. Also, we are going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay. Now we're gonna get this mix in here. So you want to make sure that gets creamed nice and smooth. So we can't move on until it is nice and smooth. Okay? You will have to use a spatula a few times as well. You know, to scrape down the sides, get it back underneath so that we can make sure that it's nice and smooth and creamy. Okay. So you can start out putting your mixer on a medium setting. You don't want everything to fly out and all over the place. So a medium setting works well. If you're using a blender, I would use a blend setting, not like a puree, because you don't want it overdone either. Okay. All right, just scraping down the sides here of my mixer. Okay, like I said, you can start it out on medium and then we can progressively make it a little quicker. In a few seconds, I'm going to put it on a little faster. There we go. seeing it become a nice texture in here. So once I wipe down the sides of here again, I will take the phone and show what the inside of the pie crust looks like and the creamy texture that you want to see with your mixture thus far. Okay? Okie doke. Now scrape down the sides, and I'll show you the creamy texture before we move forward with the other ingredients. I have to say, the last time I made this, I did lick the entire bowl, and it was delicious. I know you're not supposed to do that because in the next step we do have raw egg, so just heed my warning. Okay, here we go. Let me take the phone. Okay. And you can see the creamy texture here. Okay, and I forgot to show before, this is what the inside of your crust should look like when it's all patted down. Okie doke. So now we're going to add our other ingredients. 2 eggs left out at room temperature. Along with 2/3 cup of pureed pumpkin. We are going to do 1/4 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. And again, if you're not doing a pumpkin cheesecake, all you have to do at that point is just add your eggs. You didn't have to, of course, add the pumpkin puree. Alrighty, pumpkin pie spice. And then we are just going to add 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. 2 of those, since I'm using the 1/4 teaspoon. All right. So, I like to start off slowly as things start to mix together in here, which I can show you. I know this probably doesn't look appetizing, but I promise it is. So as it starts mixing together, you can up the speed a little bit. And kind of like we did before, we're just going to have to scrape down the sides and the middle. If you see the middle, even though that piece that's spinning is white, there is still a lot of just cream cheese that's stuck on there. So we will have to scrape everything down and give it a good whirl and another round here in the mixer. A little faster. So we want to make sure we get all these lumps out from the cream cheese. That's why it's super important to leave your cream cheese out and let it get to room temperature, because if it doesn't, getting those lumps out is nearly impossible. Okay. Looking good. All right, we're going to do 1 scrape down, 1 more swirl, and then we'll be able to pour it into the crust that we already made. We're almost there. We have such a sweet tooth in this house, so I have to say I have been doing a lot of keto baking and cooking lately to try to keep my sweet intake to a minimum and feel a little bit better about what I'm eating when I do need to fulfill that sweets craving. You know, a serving size is 1/8 of a pie. Okay, we're going for our last spin in here. Okay, still cleaning up. Okay, so this last round is finishing up. We are going to put our mixture into our pie crust. You will need a spatula to get it off the sides here. Once it's in and set on top of your crust, you're gonna pop it in the 350-degree oven for 35 to 40 minutes. Make sure the filling is set. The only disappointing part, I would say, to this cheesecake is that it has to be cool and then it has to chill. So you do have to wait a few hours or overnight to enjoy it. That truly being the only downside that I could find to this keto pumpkin cheesecake. And I will say, if you're not the biggest pumpkin fan, but you don't mind a little pumpkin flavor, it's not overly pumpkin-y for those of you that aren't the biggest fans. Also, if you're not a fan of nutmeg or what's the other one, allspice, I'm not either. So if that's you, that's why I use the pumpkin pie spice, because there's cinnamon also in pumpkin pie spice, so it takes down those other flavors greatly. I'm someone that if someone makes something or I eat something and it has nutmeg in it, I notice it right away. Told you I am a sucker for this filling. Okay, so we're just gonna pour it in here. I have to really try to scrape all of this out because otherwise I will just eat whatever is left on here. So I hope people have enjoyed my first amateur cooking video, or baking video I should say. I really, like I said, this is a fun hobby and pastime for me. It gave me an excuse to put some makeup on, not that I did my hair, I threw it in this little Raggedy Ann, or who am I thinking of? Either way, I had this little hair tie. I feel like I'm channeling a little bit of Jessie Spano here, for those of you that have watched Saved by the Bell. Okie doke. So once you've smoothed out your pie, like I said, it goes in your 350-degree oven for 35 to 40 minutes until it is set. Then you let it cool completely. Once it's cooled completely, let it chill for several hours or overnight. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a happy and healthy day.